Her tone cut through the air, far too biting for a conversation between spouses. "You'd collapse without me," she declared. "In a matter of days you'd be lost. You're nobody on your own." Her voice stayed level. No need for volume when her sneer carried the weight of her words. It was a Thursday evening, and I'd just stepped through the front door, still in the suit I'd worn since the early hours. She didn't inquire about my day or even glance my way, her eyes fixed on her phone. Then, without lifting her gaze, she delivered the blow. "I want you out tonight." I asked her why, not out of ignorance but to hear the excuse she'd crafted. "You're too dull, too predictable. You'll never amount to more than a cautious, small man." The words flowed effortlessly, as if she'd practiced them. Perhaps she had. I stood there, hands tucked in my pockets, my expression a mask. Inside, a feeling colder than anger began to take shape. I responded with a simple, "Fine," and walked out. The silence in the car was thick, not with sorrow but with calculation. She expected me to unravel, to beg, to cling to the version of myself she thought she knew. But her timing was curious. 2 weeks before the quarterly board meeting, 3 weeks before the merger was set to be revealed. She had no idea I wasn't just a cog in the machine. For years, she'd woven a narrative where I was the oblivious husband, toiling away in some nondescript office. She never asked which office or why I controlled my own hours. I'd allowed her to maintain that delusion. It had suited my purposes. But now, her words echoed in my mind, the venom, the ease, the way her eyes flicked to her phone mid-sentence. Someone was on the other end, waiting. The next morning, I was at the company before dawn. The security guard gave a familiar nod. My office door swung open, revealing the comforting scent of polished oak and understated power. I sifted through the data. Accessing her phone records was simple when the telecom provider owed you a favor. There it was, a number that appeared repeatedly, calls made during lunch breaks and late evenings when I was tied up with work. I didn't need a name to understand, but I wanted the dossier complete. The man was a mid-tier acquisitions consultant, someone I'd greenlit for hiring months earlier. They'd crossed paths at a corporate gala, one of those events she'd always brushed off as tedious business affairs. Her bank statements showed hotel charges, paid from her personal account, not our joint one. She was meticulous, careful enough to avoid my cards, but not enough to erase the trail. I said nothing. I maintained my routine, offered smiles when necessary, and made no abrupt moves. Each morning, she woke expecting a groveling text, a plea for reconciliation. Instead, she got silence. On the third night, I overheard her on the phone, her voice buoyant as she told someone, "He'll reach out. He can't function without me." She was so sure of herself. She had no clue. The day of the merger meeting arrived. The boardroom buzzed with executives, consultants, and her new companion. I took my place at the head of the table. She entered, her hand lightly on his arm, chuckling at some quip he'd made. Then her eyes met mine. Her smile wavered. "Mr. Hale," a director said. "Shall we proceed?" Her lips parted slightly, mouthing "Mr. Hale?" as if the name was foreign to her. I didn't acknowledge her. My voice was steady as I launched into the meeting, discussing profits, growth, and strategic alliances. Each word I spoke built an invisible barrier around her. When the meeting concluded, she remained seated, her face drained of color, silent. He avoided my gaze entirely. I slid a folder across the table toward her. Phone logs, bank records, hotel receipts, dates marked in red. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. We stood alone in the glass-walled conference room. The city sprawling below, vast and indifferent. "You knew," she whispered. I held her stare. "I hired him." The statement struck her like a knife. "You," she faltered, struggling to steady her breathing. "Why didn't you?" "Because I don't waste breath on those who've already judged me." Her hands trembled as she reached out, not with warmth but with desperation. "We could." I stepped back, leaving the folder on the table like a gravestone. Her phone vibrated against the glass. I saw the caller's name, his name. The same man now under suspension for violating contract terms. "You think walking away makes you victorious?" she spat, her voice breaking. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. That night, her calls came relentlessly. The first time, I watched the screen glow in my hand. The second I let it ring. By the fifth, the sound was almost absurd. The next morning, her messages morphed from fury to fear. By midday she was pleading. By nightfall she texted, "Please, I didn't realize." But she had realized. She'd just constructed her reality on the assumption that I depended on her more than she did on me. The calls went unanswered indefinitely. True power doesn't come from shouting, from proving a point, or from vengeance. It comes from silence, from walking away as the other person's world collapses in the fire they ignited. So I left her in the ashes of her own making. I never glanced back.